Cole had never believed in luck. He believed in hard work, careful planning, and always checking your fuel levels twice before leaving dock. In his 6 years as a cargo pilot, he had never missed a delivery, never lost a shipment, and never once found himself in serious trouble. That was about to change. The Wanderer was a small transport ship, nothing fancy. She had dents in her hull and rust on her landing gear. Her engines made a sound that mechanics said was impossible, but she flew true and she flew steady. Cole had bought her with his savings 3 years ago, and she had become more than a ship to him. She was his home, his livelihood, his freedom. He was hauling medical supplies to a mining colony in the outer systems when the instruments started going crazy. The navigation computer began spitting out numbers that made no sense. The sensors showed a gravitational field that should not exist in empty space. Cole grabbed the controls and tried to turn away, but the Wanderer was already caught. The ship shook like a toy in the hands of an angry child. Cole was thrown from his seat. He hit the wall hard enough to see stars. Warning lights flashed red across every panel. The hull groaned and twisted. Metal screamed. Cole knew what was coming. He had seconds, maybe less. He threw himself toward the emergency pod. The Wanderer was tearing apart around him. Panels flew off the walls. Sparks rained from the ceiling. He could feel the ship dying, could hear her crying out as the anomaly ripped her to pieces. He reached the pod and slammed the release. The door sealed behind him. The launch mechanism fired. And then Cole was spinning through space, watching the only home he had known for 3 years break apart into a cloud of metal and fire. The pod tumbled end over end. Cole hit his head on something hard. Everything went dark. When he woke up, his head was pounding and his mouth tasted like blood. The pod had stopped spinning. Through the small window, he could see nothing but stars and the scattered debris of his ship. The emergency beacon on the control panel was dark, dead. The impact must have broken it. Cole checked his supplies. He had water for 3 days if he was careful, food for maybe 2, oxygen for about 20 hours. The pod had no propulsion, no way to move. He was drifting in empty space, far from any shipping lane with no way to call for help. He was going to die out here. Cole sat in the darkness for a long time. He thought about his father, who had taught him to fix engines when he was just a boy. He thought about his mother, who had died when he was 17. He thought about all the things he had planned to do someday, all the places he had wanted to see. He closed his eyes and waited. The impact knocked him awake. The pod had hit something. Cole looked through the window and his breath stopped in his chest. There was a ship out there, but it was not a human ship. It was massive, bigger than anything Cole had ever seen. The thing had to be 3 kilometers long, maybe more. Its shape was strange, organic somehow, like it had been grown instead of built. Curves flowed into curves. Crystalline structures jutted from the hull like frozen waves. The metal, if it was metal, had a color Cole could not name, something between silver and violet. The ship was dark. No lights, no movement, no signs of life. It floated in the void like a dead whale in a black ocean. Cole stared at it for a long time. His mind was racing. This was an alien vessel, actual aliens. Humanity had been exploring space for over 200 years and had never found proof that other intelligent life existed. And here was that proof, right in front of him. He had to get inside. The pod was dying and he was dying with it. The alien ship was his only chance. Cole checked the pod's small maneuvering jets. They had enough fuel for 1 short burst, maybe 2. He aimed for a dark hole in the alien hull, a breach where something had torn through the metal long ago. He fired the jets. The pod drifted slowly toward the gap. Cole held his breath. The opening grew larger in his window. He passed through it and into darkness. The pod scraped against something and stopped. Cole grabbed his emergency kit, a small bag with basic tools, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and 3 days of food and water. He pulled on his helmet and checked the seal. Then he opened the pod door and stepped out into the alien ship. The cold hit him immediately. His suit's heaters kicked on, but he could still feel it pressing against him. The darkness was absolute until he turned on his flashlight. The beam cut through the black and showed him a corridor of strange curves and smooth walls. Everything was covered in dust and frost. Cole moved forward carefully. His boots made no sound in the vacuum. He followed the corridor deeper into the ship, looking for anything that might help him survive. He found the first body after about 10 minutes. It was lying against a wall, frozen solid. The creature had been tall, maybe 7 feet, with silver skin and 4 arms. Its face was long and narrow, with large eyes that were now empty and dark. It wore something like a uniform, dark fabric with patterns that might have been writing or decoration. Cole stood there for a long time, looking at the dead alien. He did not feel fear. He did not feel wonder. He felt only a strange sadness. This being had lived and died on this ship, far from wherever it called home, just like Cole might die here, far from Earth. He moved on. He found more bodies as he explored, dozens of them. They had died at their posts, in their rooms, in the corridors. Whatever had happened to this ship, it had happened fast. There had been no time to escape. Cole searched for hours. His oxygen was getting low when he finally found what he needed. A sealed door that still had atmosphere on the other side. He could see it on the frost patterns, could feel the slight difference in pressure. There was air in there. He found the door controls and tried to make them work. They were dead, like everything else. But the door was not completely sealed. There was a gap, just a small one. Cole took out his tools and got to work. It took him an hour to force the door open. When it finally moved, stale air rushed out to meet him. It smelled strange, alien, but his suit's sensors said it was breathable. Thin, but breathable. Cole stepped through the door and into a room full of equipment he did not understand. Lights on the walls flickered weakly, the first sign of power he had seen. There were no bodies here, just machines and silence. He closed the door behind him and sat down on the cold floor. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. He was alive. He was on an alien ship that had been dead for who knows how long, surrounded by technology he could not understand, with no way to call for help and no idea where he was. But he was alive. Cole looked around the room at the strange machines and the flickering lights. Most men would have given up. Most men would have sat down and waited to die. Cole was not most men. He opened his emergency kit and took out his tools. Then he got to work. The first week was about staying alive. Cole found more rooms with atmosphere, more pockets of air trapped behind sealed doors. He moved between them carefully, always keeping track of how much oxygen he had left in his suit tank. He found water in some kind of storage tank, strange blue liquid that his suit sensors said was safe to drink. It tasted wrong, too sweet and too thin, but it kept him alive. Food was harder. He ate through his emergency rations in 4 days. After that, he found what he thought might be an alien food storage room. The containers held things that looked like dried fruit and something like pressed grain. He tested small amounts first, waiting hours to see if his body would reject them. When nothing bad happened, he ate more. The alien food tasted like dust and metal, but it filled his stomach and gave him strength. Cole explored the ship section by section, room by room. He moved slowly and carefully, always watching, always learning. He found sleeping quarters with strange beds that curved around the body. He found what looked like a medical bay, full of equipment that hummed with faint power. He found a room that might have been a kitchen, another that might have been a library, another filled with plants that had died long ago. He made maps on pieces of metal, scratching lines with a sharp tool. He marked the rooms with atmosphere, the rooms with power, the rooms with bodies. He learned the ship's layout the hard way, through walking and searching and sometimes getting lost. The second week was about understanding. Cole had grown up in Ohio, in a small town where nothing ever happened. His father had owned a repair shop, a dirty little building where farmers brought their tractors and townspeople brought their cars. Cole had learned to work with his hands before he learned to read. By the time he was 10, he could take apart an engine and put it back together. By the time he was 15, he was fixing things his father could not figure out. He had a gift, that was what people said. He could look at a machine and understand how it worked. He could feel where the problem was, sense what needed to be fixed. It was not magic. It was just how his brain worked. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. The alien technology was different from anything he had ever seen. The machines did not use gears or pistons or circuits like human machines. They used crystals and organic materials and energy fields that Cole did not understand. The engines did not burn fuel. They did something else, something that bent space itself. The power systems drew energy from sources Cole could not identify, maybe from the void itself. But machines were machines. They had parts that did things. They had connections that carried power or information. They had logic, even if that logic was strange. Cole started with the small things. He found a lighting panel that was dark and took it apart. The inside was filled with tiny crystals arranged in patterns. Some of the crystals were cracked or cloudy. Cole replaced them with clear ones he found in another panel. When he put it back together, the panel glowed with soft blue light. He found a door that would not open and studied its mechanism. There was a power connection that had come loose, a thin cable made of something like metal thread. He reconnected it. The door opened. He found a ventilation system that had stopped working. The problem was a blockage in one of the tubes, a buildup of something like dust or mold. He cleaned it out. Air began to flow again. Each small success taught him something new. Each failure taught him even more. Cole kept notes in his head, building a picture of how the alien technology worked. The crystals stored and directed power. The organic materials processed information like a brain. The metal that was not quite metal could change shape when electricity passed through it. Everything was connected, everything worked together, like a single living organism. By the end of the third week, Cole had restored power to an entire section of the ship. The lights came on. The atmosphere generators hummed. The temperature rose from freezing to something almost comfortable. He could walk through the corridors without his suit for the first time. He stood in one of those corridors and looked at the glowing walls. He had done this. A cargo pilot from Ohio, with no training in alien technology, had made a dead ship come back to life. It was not enough. He needed more. He needed to understand the bigger systems, the engines and the navigation and the communications. He needed to find a way to call for help or fly the ship back to human space. Cole found what he thought was a workshop near the center of the ship. The room was filled with tools hanging on the walls, strange shapes that fit the four-fingered hands of the dead aliens. There were workbenches with half-finished projects, machines that had been taken apart and never put back together. And there were books, or something like books, flat panels covered in flowing symbols that Cole could not read. He spent days in that room, studying the tools, learning how to use them. Some were simple, like wrenches and cutters and drills. Others were more complex, devices that could scan objects and show their internal structure, tools that could bond materials together without heat or glue. The books were harder, the symbols meant nothing to him, but the pictures helped. He found diagrams of ship systems, drawings that showed how things connected. He compared them to what he had seen in the ship. Slowly, piece by piece, he began to understand. 1 month passed, then 2. Cole worked every day until his body forced him to stop. He slept on the floor of the workshop, wrapped in alien fabric that kept him warm. He ate the strange food and drank the blue water. He talked to himself sometimes, just to hear a human voice in the silence. He missed Earth. He missed the smell of grass and the sound of rain. He missed talking to other people, laughing at stupid jokes, eating food that tasted like food. He missed his father, who had died 2 years ago, who had never seen his son become a pilot. But he did not give up. He could not give up. Giving up meant dying, and Cole was not ready to die. He restored more systems. The medical bay came back online, its machines humming with power. Some kind of mapping system activated, showing him the layout of the ship in glowing lines. A water recycling system started working, giving him clean water without the strange, sweet taste. The ship was coming back to life around him. It was slow and hard, and sometimes Cole made mistakes that set him back days. But it was happening. He was standing in the engine room one day, looking at the massive machines that filled the space, when he realized something important. He was not just surviving anymore. He was not just waiting for rescue that might never come. He was rebuilding a starship. Cole laughed out loud. The sound echoed through the empty room. A cargo pilot from a small town in Ohio was rebuilding an alien starship. His father would not have believed it. No one would believe it. But it was true. Cole looked at the engines, at the crystals and the organic tubes and the strange metal that hummed with hidden power. He did not understand everything yet. There was so much he still needed to learn, but he understood enough. He could see the patterns. He could feel where the problems were. He picked up his tools and got back to work. The universe had tried to kill him. It had thrown him into the void, destroyed his ship, left him alone on a dead alien vessel with no hope of rescue. But Cole was human, and humans did not know when to quit. Cole had been on the ship for 43 days when he found the heart of the vessel. He had been following power lines through the walls, tracing them back to their source. The ship's power did not come from the engines, he had learned. It came from somewhere else, somewhere deep in the core of the vessel. He wanted to find it. He needed to understand it if he was ever going to get this ship flying again. The path led him through corridors he had not explored before, down through levels that grew darker and stranger. The walls here were more organic, covered in patterns that looked almost like veins. The air felt different, heavier somehow, charged with energy he could feel on his skin. He came to a massive door, bigger than any he had seen before. It was sealed tight, but Cole had learned how to open these locks. He worked for 2 hours, connecting power lines, bypassing broken circuits, until the door finally groaned and slid open. What he found inside took his breath away. The chamber was huge, stretching up into darkness above him. The walls were covered in crystalline structures that rose from the floor like frozen trees. In the center of the room was something that looked like a pool of silver liquid, perfectly still, reflecting nothing. And surrounding the pool were machines unlike anything Cole had seen on the ship, organic shapes wrapped around cores of crystal and light. This was the brain of the ship. Cole knew it the moment he saw it. This was where the vessel thought and remembered and dreamed. He stepped closer to the machines, shining his light into the crystalline cores. Most of them were dark, dead like everything else. But in one of them, deep inside, something flickered. A tiny light, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Cole felt his own heart beat faster. Was something still alive in here? He spent hours studying the machine with the flickering light. It was different from the others, smaller and more protected, surrounded by layers of crystal that had kept it safe while the others died. Inside, he could see what looked like preserved organic tissue, something like a brain made of silver threads and glowing nodes. Cole made a decision. He was going to try to wake it up. He worked for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, barely eating. He traced power lines to the machine. He found broken connections and repaired them. He figured out which parts needed more energy and which needed less. He made mistakes and fixed them. He kept trying again and again because that was what he did. On the 3rd night, the machine made a sound. It was not words, not at first. It was a hum, a vibration that Cole felt more than heard. The light inside the crystal pulsed faster. The silver threads moved, just slightly, like something waking from a long sleep. Cole watched, his hands shaking, as the machine came back to life. The sound changed. It became something like music, notes rising and falling in patterns that almost made sense. The lights in the chamber flickered. Other machines began to hum. The pool of silver liquid rippled for the first time. Then the voice came. It was inside his head, not in his ears. It was faint and broken, like a radio signal from very far away. Cole could not understand the words, but he could feel the emotion behind them. Confusion, fear, and something that might have been hope. Cole spoke out loud, not knowing if the thing could hear him. He said his name. He said he was human, from Earth. He said he had been stranded here and was trying to fix the ship. He said he was not an enemy. The voice in his head changed. The broken sounds shifted and rearranged themselves. And slowly, word by word, they became something Cole could understand. You are alive. Cole laughed, a sound that was half relief and half amazement. Yes, he said. I am alive, are you? There was a long pause. The lights flickered. The silver threads inside the machine moved again. I do not know. I am broken. I am pieces. Cole understood. The machine, whatever it was, had been damaged. It was not whole anymore. It was a fragment, a ghost of what it had been. I can help you, he said. I have been fixing things on the ship. I can try to fix you too. Another pause, then, you are not of my people. You are different, small, strange. How can you fix what you do not understand? Cole shrugged, even though he did not know if the thing could see him. I understand machines. I have been learning your technology. It is different from what I know, but not impossible. Everything has a logic to it. Everything can be fixed if you try hard enough. The voice was silent for a long time. Cole waited, barely breathing. My name was, the voice said finally. I was the navigator and caretaker of this vessel. I watched my crew die. I have drifted alone in the dark for. I do not know how long. I thought I would fade away. I thought I was already dead. Cole felt a tightness in his chest. He knew what it was like to be alone, to drift in the dark waiting to die. He had felt that when his own ship was destroyed. My name is Cole, he said, and you are not dead, not yet. Let me help you. The work that followed was the hardest Cole had ever done. Guided him as best she could, explaining the systems that made up her mind in broken sentences and half-formed images. Cole learned that she was not just a computer. She was something more, a being grown and shaped to be part of the ship, to feel its corridors like her own body, to know every system like her own thoughts. But most of her was gone now. The attack that had killed the crew had also damaged her. She had lost memories, lost abilities, lost pieces of herself that could never be replaced. What remained was barely enough to think, to speak, to remember who she had been. Cole did what he could. He repaired memory cores using crystalline fragments from other machines. He rebuilt neural pathways with organic tissue he found preserved in the medical bay. He connected human technology to alien circuits, creating bridges between systems that were never meant to work together. It took weeks. Cole grew thin and tired. His hands were covered in cuts from the crystals. His mind ached from trying to understand things that were beyond his training. But slowly, day by day, grew stronger. Her voice became clearer. She could remember more of her past, more of the ship's history, more of the language her people had spoken. She began to help Cole more actively, guiding him to systems he had not found, explaining concepts he had not understood. And one day, she said something that stopped him cold. You should not be able to do this, Cole. Cole looked up from the circuit he was repairing. What do you mean? My people were engineers for 10,000 years. We built ships that could cross the galaxy in days. We shaped planets and stars to our will. We thought we were the greatest builders in all of existence. She paused, her voice dropped low. But none of us could have done what you have done. You had no training, no knowledge, no tools made for this work. You should have failed 1,000 times. And yet here you are, putting me back together with nothing but your hands and your will. Cole did not know what to say. He had just been doing what he always did, fixing broken things the only way he knew how. Humans are not primitive, said. You are something else entirely, something my people never imagined. You do not need 10,000 years of knowledge. You just need to refuse to stop trying. Cole looked at his hands, at the cuts and the burns and the calluses. He thought about his father fixing tractors in that little shop in Ohio. He thought about all the times he had been told something was impossible, and he had done it anyway. Maybe that was what being human meant. Not being the or the strongest, just being too stubborn to quit. He picked up his tools and got back to work. With help, everything changed. She could see systems Cole could not see. She could feel the ship like it was her own body, sense where the damage was, know which parts were dying and which could still be saved. She guided him through repairs that would have taken him months to figure out on his own. And Cole worked. He worked harder than he had ever worked in his life. The power systems came first, showed him how to restart the main reactor, a massive device in the belly of the ship that drew energy from somewhere beyond normal space. Cole did not fully understand how it worked, but he understood enough to fix what was broken. He replaced burned-out crystals, repaired torn conduits, reconnected power lines that had been severed in the ancient attack. When the reactor finally hummed to life, the whole ship shook. Lights came on in corridors that had been dark for 800 years. Machines that had sat silent began to hum and click. The ship woke up around them like a giant creature opening its eyes. Cole stood in the reactor room and watched the displays come alive. Numbers and symbols scrolled past, most of which he could not read, but could read them. And she was crying if something like her could cry. "I can feel myself again," she whispered. "I can feel my corridors, my rooms, my systems. I am still broken, still missing so much. But I am alive, Cole. You made me alive again." Cole just nodded. He was too tired for words. But there was more work to do. The ship was powered now, but it could not move. The engines were still dead, damaged beyond anything had seen before. Whatever weapon had killed the crew had been aimed at the engines first, trying to cripple the ship before finishing it off. Told him the engines were beyond repair. The damage was too great, the technology too complex. Her people would have needed specialized tools and materials that did not exist on the ship. It was impossible. Cole did not believe in impossible. He spent 3 months on the engines, 3 months of studying, planning, trying, failing, and trying again. He took the engines apart piece by piece, laying out the components on the floor of the engine room until they covered every surface. He studied each part until he understood what it did, how it worked, why it had failed. The engines used something called space folding. They bent the fabric of reality itself, creating a bubble around the ship that let it slip between points in space like a needle through cloth. The technology was beautiful and terrifying and completely broken. Cole could not fix it the way it was supposed to be fixed. He did not have the right materials. He did not have the right knowledge. The damage was too severe. So he fixed it a different way. He used parts from other systems, components that were not meant for engines but could do similar jobs. He replaced alien materials with things he could make or find on the ship. He changed the design, some parts, and added others. He threw away the old rules and made new ones. Watched him work and said nothing. Sometimes she would suggest something, offer a piece of knowledge that helped. But mostly she just watched, her presence a warm hum in the back of his mind. The day Cole finally activated the rebuilt engine, he held his breath. The machine shuddered. Strange lights flickered inside the crystal cores. The organic tubes pulsed with energy. The whole room vibrated with a sound that was more felt than heard. And then, slowly, the engine came to life. Was silent for a long time. "That is not how it is supposed to work," she said finally. Her voice was strange, filled with something Cole could not identify. "Does it work?" he asked. "Yes, it works better than the original design. The efficiency is higher. The power consumption is lower. You did not just fix the engine, Cole. You improved it." Cole sat down on the floor and laughed. He laughed until tears ran down his face, until his chest hurt, until he could not breathe. He had done it. He had actually done it. The weapons came next. The ship had been a warship, told him. Her people had been at war with another race, enemies who had hunted them across the galaxy. The ship's weapons were powerful, designed to fight threats that Cole could not imagine. Most of them were destroyed, but Cole found some that could be saved. He rebuilt them the same way he had rebuilt the engines, using parts that were not meant for weapons but worked anyway. The designs, made them easier to maintain, easier to power. Asked him once why he was rebuilding the weapons. The war was over. Her people were dead. There was no one left to fight. Cole shrugged. "I do not know what is out there. I do not know what I might find on the way home. Better to have weapons and not need them than need them and not have them." Accepted that answer. The shields were easier than the weapons. The navigation system was harder. The communication systems were nearly impossible, requiring Cole to learn an entirely new way of sending and receiving signals across space. But he did it, day after day, week after week, month after month. He rebuilt the dead ship with his bare hands, one system at a time. 7 months after he had first crashed into the ship, Cole stood on the bridge. The room was circular, with a central platform where the captain would have stood. Displays surrounded him, showing information about every system on the ship. Lights glowed softly from the walls. The air hummed with energy. Everything worked. The engines, the weapons, the shields, the navigation. The ship was ready to fly. Cole stood there for a long time, looking at what he had built. His hands were calloused. His body was thin from months of hard work and strange food. His hair had grown long and wild. He barely recognized himself. But he had done it, the impossible thing. He had brought a dead ship back to life. He said quietly, "How long until we can reach human space?" She calculated for a moment. At maximum speed with the improved engines, approximately 4 months. 4 months. After everything he had been through, 4 months felt like nothing. "Are you ready to go home?" asked. Cole thought about that question. Home, Earth, other humans, real food and clean water and air that did not taste like metal, his old life, whatever was left of it. "Yes," he said, "I am ready." He sat down in the captain's chair. It was too big for him, designed for beings taller and thinner than humans. But it was his chair now. This was his ship. He said, "Take us home." The engines hummed. Space bent around the ship. And for the first time in 800 years, the vessel moved, carrying a human pilot toward home. Cole watched the stars streak past and felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. The journey took 4 months and 6 days. Cole spent the time resting, healing, and learning. Taught him more about her people, about their history and culture and the war that had destroyed them. She taught him their language, their music, their stories. He taught her about Earth, about humans, about the small town in Ohio where he had grown up fixing tractors and dreaming of the stars. They became friends, the human pilot and the alien mind. They were both alone in their own ways, both survivors of disasters that should have killed them. They understood each other in ways that went beyond words. The ship healed around them. With power flowing through her systems, could direct repairs that Cole could not do himself. Small machines moved through the corridors, fixing damage, cleaning away the dust of centuries. The bodies of the crew were gathered and placed in a room that said was meant for honoring the dead. Cole visited that room once. He stood among the silver forms and said a quiet prayer, something his mother had taught him when he was young. He did not know if these aliens had believed in anything like God, but he wanted to honor them somehow, these people who had built the ship that had saved his life. When the ship finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Mars, Cole was standing on the bridge. He looked at the red planet through the main display and felt tears in his eyes. He was home. After everything, he was finally home. But there was a problem. Alarms were sounding all across his displays, was speaking rapidly in his mind, showing him sensor data, ship signatures, weapons systems powering up. The Earth Defense Fleet had detected them, and they were preparing to attack. Cole understood. He was arriving in an alien warship, a massive vessel of unknown design. From the perspective of the military, he was an invasion force. They had no way of knowing that the ship was controlled by a human. He activated the communication systems and broadcast on every frequency he could find. "This is Lieutenant Cole, Earth Merchant Marine, registration number 7742. I am the only person on this vessel. Repeat, I am a human citizen of Earth. Please do not fire. I am coming home." There was silence for a long moment. Then a voice came back, sharp and suspicious. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Lisa Trent of the defense ship Valor. You are commanded to hold position and power down all weapons. A boarding party is being dispatched. Any hostile action will be met with lethal force." Cole powered down the weapons as ordered. He told to be calm, to not react to whatever the humans did. Then he waited. The shuttle arrived 2 hours later. Cole watched it dock through the ship's sensors, a tiny thing compared to the massive alien vessel. Soldiers in combat armor stepped out, moving carefully, weapons raised. Cole met them at the airlock. He was unarmed, dressed in the strange alien clothes he had found on the ship, his hair long and his beard wild. He probably looked more alien than human. The soldiers pointed their weapons at him. One of them spoke, voice muffled by her helmet. "Cole." "Yes," he said, "that is me." "How do we know you are who you say you are? This could be a trick." Cole thought for a moment, then he smiled. "My father owned a repair shop in Ohio. He taught me that a man's word is worth more than gold. I give you my word, I am Cole. I am human. And I have spent the last 8 months putting this ship back together with nothing but my hands and a lot of stubbornness." The soldiers looked at each other. Then the one who had spoken removed her helmet. Captain Lisa Trent was a woman in her 40s, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She looked at Cole for a long moment, studying his face. "You were declared dead 8 months ago," she said. "Your ship was lost with all hands. How are you alive?" "Long story," Cole said. "Would you like to hear it?" She nodded slowly. "I think I would." Cole told her everything. He showed her the ship, explained what he had done, introduced her too. The AI was cautious around the other humans, but she spoke to them politely, answered their questions, showed them evidence of her people and their history. Lisa Trent listened to it all. When Cole was finished, she was silent for a long time. "You were a cargo pilot," she finally said. "You had no training as an engineer. You had no experience with alien technology. You had nothing but basic tools and your own knowledge." Cole nodded. "And you rebuilt an 800-year-old alien warship by yourself." He nodded again. Lisa shook her head slowly. "I have been in the military for 25 years. I have seen a lot of things I thought were impossible, but this might be the most impossible thing I have ever seen." Cole shrugged. "I did not know it was impossible, so I just did it." The news spread across human space in days. Cole became the most famous human alive. Scientists came from every nation to study his ship and learn from. Engineers analyzed his modifications, finding innovations that would advance human technology by decades. Historians recorded his memories, learning about an alien civilization that had risen and fallen before humans had even discovered fire. The governments wanted the ship. They wanted to study it, take it apart, learn its secrets. They offered Cole money, fame, power, anything he wanted in exchange for the vessel. Cole refused. "This ship saved my life," he told them. "Saved my life. I am not going to let anyone take her apart like a broken machine." There were arguments. There were threats. There were offers that would have made Cole rich beyond his dreams. He refused them all. In the end, they reached a compromise. Scientists could study the ship, but they could not dismantle it, would share what knowledge she was willing to share, but she would not be forced. And Cole would remain the captain, the owner, the one person who could say what happened to the vessel. He named the ship after his mother. It seemed right somehow. Approved of the name. Years passed. Cole never went back to being a cargo pilot. He could not after everything he had been through. Instead, he became something else, something new. A bridge between humanity and the alien knowledge that carried. A teacher, helping scientists understand technology that should have been centuries beyond their reach. A pilot still, sometimes, taking them on journeys through space that no human ship could match. He never married. He never had children. People asked him sometimes if he was lonely, if he regretted the choices he had made. Cole always smiled at that question. "I spent 8 months alone on a dead ship in the middle of nowhere," he would say. "I rebuilt an alien warship with my bare hands. I made friends with a mind that is older than human civilization. Lonely is not really something I worry about anymore." And then there was. She stayed with him always. The ship was her body now, the only home she had left. She watched Cole grow older, watched his hair turn gray and his body slow down. She knew that humans did not live as long as her people had. She knew that one day Cole would die and she would be alone again. But she did not regret her choice. Cole had given her something precious, something she had thought was lost forever. He had given her life. On the day Cole finally died, at the age of 87, spoke to the humans who had gathered to honor him. "Cole was not the human I ever knew," she said. "He was not the strongest or the fastest. He did not have special training or secret knowledge. He was just a man who fixed things for a living. She paused. The humans listened in silence. But he had something my people never understood. He had a fire inside him that would not go out. He faced the impossible and he did not stop trying. He did not know how to give up. And because of that, he did things that should have been beyond any being in the galaxy. Her voice softened. That is what humans are. You are not special because you are better than other species. You are special because you refuse to accept limits. You see the impossible and you do it anyway. Cole taught me that, and I will never forget it. The memorial service ended. The humans left, returning to their lives, their work, their own impossible dreams. Stayed behind, alone on the ship that Cole had rebuilt from death. She looked at the stars through her sensors and remembered the man who had saved her. And somewhere out there in the void, she knew, other humans were doing impossible things. That was what they did. That was who they were. The universe had better get used to it.